Hi, good morning. My name is Olivia, and I'm with the Royal House and Slave Quarters. And I'm here to talk to you about the life of Belinda and Belinda's footsteps, a story of sugar, slavery, and survival. Welcome from the Royal House and Slave Quarters. As you can see, this is our logo here, and you're able to see the Royal House, that's the large house to the right, and the slave quarters, which you see from the side view to the left. And you can see there we are in Medford, Massachusetts. This next image shows you what the house actually looks like. So you can see the royal house over to the left side. You can see the slave quarters. One part of it is brick, one part of it is wood, and they were built during separate, probably 20 years apart. The wooden addition was added 20 years later. So when Isaac Royal came back from Antigua, that large house on the left was there, and the brick building was the slave quarters, and that's on the right. And here we have Belinda. Belinda is an enslaved person, was an enslaved person. She was pretty integral to the royals' lifestyle, and we're going to learn a little bit about her during this presentation and the steps that she walked in. If you look at this slide, you see a kind of lopsided, strangely shaped triangle, but it is basically a triangle. There are 3 points to this triangle. The point you see over on the right that's touching Africa, that's Ghana. And that is where Belinda is from. That's where she was born. We have that information because of a petition that she had written. After she left Ghana, she was taken on a ship to Antigua, which is where the royals had their plantation. And then she ends up in Massachusetts. And those are her footsteps, and we're going to talk about those different points in her life. So Belinda starts out in Africa. She lives near a river. She remembers spicy forests and lots of fruit in her homeland. She remembers being captured. She remembers the Middle Passage. And eventually she makes her way to Massachusetts. But first, we're going to look at some of what her life might have entailed on the sugarcane plantation. This image you see here is of enslaved people cutting down sugarcane. And these are images taken from the island of the island of Antigua. And the sugarcane you see is very tall. It's taller than a human. They have these big machetes where they're cutting down the sugarcane constantly. And just remember that because they are working with these knives, there's always a chance of cuts and infection, and you don't have antiseptics and things like you have every day if there is a cut. It could be a severe cut, you can lose a finger or something like that. People will die from infection, so this is very dangerous work. And remember, they're working in at least 95 to 100-degree weather for a lot of the time. Here you have the mill where the sugarcane is crushed. So you can see that big windmill. You see the arch in the middle. There is a woman that is pushing a bundle of sugarcane between these rollers, and it's supposed to crush out all of the juice from the sugarcane. This is also very dangerous work, and you don't want to get your hand caught in those rollers, because if you do, somebody basically has to cut your hand off, because if they don't, your whole body will go through those rollers. There's no way to stop or reverse the machine. So that's something that was also very dangerous. Another thing that we see here is the boiling process. Once all of the juice is squeezed out of the sugarcane, it has to be boiled. And the molasses and the sugar crystals are separated from each other during this boiling process. And there's also the danger of burns and, again, infections and everything. And the work on the sugarcane plantation is so dangerous that most enslaved people didn't survive but more than 4 or 5 years at all. And so when I go through those slides, those are the kinds of things that I'm talking about, the brutality of life in Antigua. So after a while, Belinda ended up leaving Antigua and coming to the royal house. So her life was pretty different by the time she got here. Um, but she's still doing all the regular labor. I also want to point out to you that although this particular triangle that Belinda was involved in was from Africa to Antigua to Massachusetts, there were many, many different types of triangles. Some of them were from Africa to the West Indies to like Charleston. Some of them were from America to the West Indies to Europe. Some of them were from one part of Europe to another part of Europe to America. Some of them, so basically there are many, many, many different triangles. So don't only think of the triangle trade as being the ones that the royals had. They had a plantation in Antigua, they had a source in Ghana, and they had a home in Massachusetts. So that's why they had their particular triangle. Different people had whatever triangles fit their business. It's also important to know that there were children at the royal house. Two of the children that we know of were Belinda's children, Joseph and Prine. And they would have been doing work in the kitchen, they would have been helping out in the home, probably collecting milk from all of the cows that were on the property because this was a commercial dairy. Um, so they would have been working alongside of Belinda, their mother. There were also two girls that were in this property, Mary and Elizabeth Royal. They were the grandchildren of the man who had the royal house built. Isaac Royal Sr. was his name. Their father rather, was Isaac Royal Jr., and he inherited all of the property after Isaac Royal Sr. died. So Isaac Royal Jr. was born a poor man, so in one generation they amassed a great deal of wealth because of the triangle trade. And if there's some more details you want to give about Isaac Royal, about some of the background, this would be the chance for you to go ahead and do that. And this is the end of the Belinda's Footsteps presentation.